So by now, most of you will be familiar with Joe Kent, who resigned from the US administration and claimed that it's because there's no good reason to be going to war against Iran, there's no imminent threat, and that Israel, the Jews are doing this, they're the ones that have duped Trump. Amazing. Who'd have thought Trump could be so easily duped? Doesn't really seem so much in Trump's character. But then suddenly he's jumping on the Tucker Carlson, Groyper, Candace Owens-esque speaker circuit, literally within hours. Moments after that, reports come out that the FBI are investigating him for leaking information to figures such as Tucker Carlson. Mark Levin, one of those people who said actually he was called to meet with Trump when Trump asked his opinion on Iran and other things, and then he met Joe Kent briefly and he realized that Joe Kent was the one that leaked, and then he leaked it to Tucker, and then Tucker then spun the whole thing as Levin lobbies, pressures Trump to go to war against Iran. As Levin reminded us, it was actually the other way around. Trump invited him to the White House. But I want to show you Dan Bongino talking about this, the way that Joe Kent has acted here, how it's clearly this is someone who, for whatever reason, is pushing stuff that's conspiracy theory land. Sounds like, honestly, someone that's been listening to too much Candace Owens. I know he's already gone on a bit of a speaking circuit with all the classic expected places, talking heads, groups that you'd expect someone with those sympathies to be going to. But Dan Bongino explains why not just what happened is a total mischaracterization of America's intel, but also why the way Joe Kent behaved, not just in his resignation letter, but the fact that he clearly had these views and these disturbed points of view whilst having this position in counterterrorism analysis in the government is really quite serious indeed. Have a watch.
The truth will always set you free. Every time. Now you're seeing the grift totally, completely exposed. Bare ass out there and everything. Joe Kent's a liar. As I said yesterday and the day before, Joe was a friend. Joe disgraced himself last night. Joe's history of service to the country, beyond reproach. Period. That does not change anything about what happened last night, however, that Joe Kent is a liar. Calling someone a liar is a big deal. And I know that.
What kind of pressure does it require to get a president who campaigned against exactly this thing for 10 years to do exactly this thing? What does it take to do that?
I wish I knew definitively. I think there's two potentials, there's two schools of thought. I mean, one is the media echo chamber, the donors, the way the Israelis come in and kind of launder the.
By the way, that's not true. Trump has been warning about Iran and saying he wants to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities for decades.
Information like I described previously.
In 20 seconds, you have it right. This is the mark for suckers. You fall for the hidden knowledge scam and the gatekeeper theory that you voted for Donald Trump, but he's not smart enough to know what's going on. Donald Trump does not know what's going on. Quote, the Israelis have laundered intelligence. I saw the intelligence. So did he. He's lying.
Well, indeed. And I want to show you a clip of Dan Bongino reacting to the fact that Joe Kent is now going full headfirst, diving into the Charlie Kirk, Israel did it conspiracy theories.
I mean, if
an attempted murder of a presidential
candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year.
Yeah, correct.
And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all.
Okay. Listen, folks, this part I have to just leave here. This is some of the most disgusting, unethical, and immoral stuff I have ever seen. Leveraging the death of my good friend, his brutal murder, his assassination, that the whole world watched in all of its horrifying gore. For your podcast appearance, you're disgusting. Thank you for your service to the country. You're also disgusting. This is filth. This is just filth. I wasn't allowed to ask questions, Joe Kent. I'm just going to leave that there, folks. And all you people defending him right now, I'll accept your apology later. You watch. You weren't allowed to ask questions? You sure about that? Sure you want that on the record, Joe? You weren't allowed to ask questions? Really? Go ahead.
It's so pathetic, isn't it?
Really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office.
He did? That's fascinating, because I've had conversations with Charlie too. I don't talk about them because the man's dead and I don't like to invoke his name for podcast clicks, okay? Only to remember him. And I'm not going to do it now. You sure that's how Charlie felt? Matter of fact, I've got a clip of Charlie we're going to play.
Yeah. Well, we've actually got the clip right here of where Charlie Kirk spoke about his views on the Iran war. Now, before I share that with you and show this to you, I don't think it matters if Charlie Kirk, let's say, completely turned on Israel. That does not create any evidence whatsoever that Israel was involved in his assassination. Correlation does not equal causation. I can find you loads of things that correlate to Charlie Kirk's murder, but they're completely irrelevant to the causation of his murder. But it just so happens to be anyway that his take on the Iran war, while he was very concerned about it given the history of the Iraq war, it was still very much in support of President Trump once the decision was made. Watch.
And you might say, Charlie, do you support or oppose this? I support President Trump. That's my answer. I know the man. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the man for the hour, and he's had the weight of the world on his shoulders. So in a situation like this, I support my friend, and he's had my back and I have his. That's my perspective. By the way, I also look at this and I say, and I understand the arguments of people that, don't intervene and all that. I get it. But boy, have we not exhausted so many diplomatic channels and options. And
Yeah. Clearly, people trying to frame him as being ideologically opposed to all this and like staunch and having no nuance is absurd. It's absurd. And Joe Kent very clearly is one of those. And I think Dan Bongino's position is right. Thank you for your service, but also what you're doing is wrong, immoral, and it clearly looks like it's a matter of expediency, perhaps because you're under investigation. God knows what. But it's not rooted in reality. It's not rooted in facts. It's rooted in ideology and cynical objectives. We need to get this word out so people know, because I know people are going to weaponize Joe Kent's resignation letter. I'm sure he knew that as well, to try and undermine Trump and this war. That's absolutely fundamental, necessary, and just. And if you don't believe me, listen to all the much higher security and intelligence and government officials than Joe Kent in the administration that have confirmed that the threat was serious, imminent, and now was the chance to act. Now was the time to act. Also, to get the message out, if you haven't already, it surprises me, but not a good chunk of our regular viewers don't actually hit the subscribe button. These things can really, really help us to grow, to get on even higher quality guests, to push out more content, to grow the channel. Please hit the subscribe button. Please like our videos, comment, hype our videos. All these things really, really help. And most importantly, our new JTV Plus documentary, Zionism and Judaism, The False Separation, is out. And it may well be the most important documentary we've created to date. Everyone loves to say, got no problem with the Jews, it's just Israel, Zionism. Well, this distinction between Judaism and Zionism is a farce. Have a watch the trailer, and if you want to watch the full thing, you can just click on the link below in the video description. I'm not against Judaism, I'm just against Zionism.
It's not Jewish, it's Zionism.
Yeah. Judaism and Zionism are completely separate.
Judaism is a faith, Israel is a state.
You can be Jewish without being a Zionist.
Zionism and Judaism is totally diametrically opposed.
I'm sure you've heard this before, from protesters, from politicians, from even well-meaning people trying to navigate the Israel-Palestine debate. But I'm here to tell you that this separation is complete nonsense. It's a comfortable lie. The kind of lie that sounds intelligent but collapses the moment you actually open this book, the Torah, the Bible, and study Judaism on its own terms. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to tackle this myth head on. We'll actually look inside the Torah and see how in the very first book, Genesis, there's no mention of law or religion. It's all centered on the promise of a specific land to a specific nation. We'll trace how Judaism, not modern politics, but Judaism itself, is structured around one obsessive, relentless, undeniable claim: the land of Israel belongs to the Jews. We'll reveal why the building of a nation in the land of Israel is an indispensable part of the project of Judaism. Why Judaism is not a religion, it's the divine project of a nation in a land. We'll discover how the Torah preemptively answered the colonization accusation that wouldn't fully materialize for another 3,000 years. We'll explore why, if the land is so central, Jews had to spend thousands of years in global exile. We'll unpack what Zionism actually means, and how anti-Zionism doesn't just contradict Israeli policy, it contradicts the fundamental architecture of Judaism itself. For some people, this is going to be uncomfortable viewing, but by the end, we'll prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Judaism and Zionism are inseparable. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.